frozen at the beginning of all the places.
Instead of going, we froze.
Of all the places to freeze.
Really? We froze at the very beginning of the intro.
Let's hope that just stays that way.
Crazy.
Lord, let this not freeze.
In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name. Good evening, as the title goes. This is not a Cosmovision. This is a CTDW episode. So welcome. Welcome.
Welcome.
We are talking about Nimrodian ethics. Well, not so much ethics, Nimrodian practices 101.
I don't know that Nimrod had any ethics of which to speak.
Oh, believe me, he had ethics. Maybe he had values. Maybe that's what he had. I don't think he had any ethics. Everyone has values, but not everyone has ethics.
Ethics have a positive connotation, don't you think?
I would say it does. Values has had a seemingly imbued positive connotation, but I would dispute that it's a positive thing to have values.
Oh yeah, it's a tool.
Yeah.
Values are a tool with neither positive nor negative.
Yeah.
Just what you imbue it with. That's
Correct.
a good way to.
Correct. Ethics implies that we have a point of good and evil, and I guess according to Nimrod he did, but as a subjective way of saying it, maybe he had ethics, but on an objective plane, I would say no.
Yeah, no, I would go with he was not very objective about good and evil. I mean, he lived up to his name. Let's rebel.
I would say that good was equated by power.
Right. What was good for him?
Correct. Oh, that old rebellion and witchcraft. That silly old story. Hello, guys. Sorry, we're coming back full circle. We actually do have a lot to talk about today. As you can probably hear, we've been chatting a good bit. This has been a crazy topic, but before we get into it, we want to let you guys know how you can get a hold of us. As you can see down below, you can contact us at YouTube, Spotify, solo.to/CTDW, solo.to/CTDW, solo.to/CTDW. And feel free to contact us.
So pretty. Aren't those fonts lovely, guys?
They're great. My kiddo helped me make that overlay. Thank you. Thank you, son, who I will not name.
Good job, son, who must not be named on social media.
Cadabra. Sorry, guys. Okay, we won't do that anymore.
Goodness.
The boy who comes to place an overlay. Okay. No more. That was really lame. You guys can contact us at YouTube. You can find us, watch us at YouTube, Spotify. You can contact us on any of our social media. Solo.to/CTDW is the best way to do that. But you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, which is now X, which X is going to have, oddly enough, a humongous role in our talk today, or at least a decidedly important one. So contact us there if you guys would like to follow us and subscribe to us for as little as $3. Yes, just $3. You can do that on Spotify. You can also, you can technically do that on Patreon if you would like to. But I would like to save you some cash and send you over to Spotify. Now, once we get our merch up and running, which hopefully by the time this airs... No, sorry, by the end of this month, By the end of this month, we're hoping to have our merch rolling out. So we're hoping we're going to start. I'm going big. I'm hoping for 3 T's, but maybe that's too big. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's...
You know what? Maybe
we
should do a quiz.
Ooh.
For the top 3 T ideas.
Oh, you mean like a survey?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. All right.
Guys, the winner needs to be standing at the gates of hell, redirecting traffic.
That would be a
good
shirt.
That's my favorite.
Okay, well I would say that's a easy number one. I'm thinking about one that says I'm transhuman, and then trans is crossed out because we are 100% human. Thank you. I will take my humanity any day of the week.
And keep it.
Yeah, maybe not, give it out to other gods and become Nephilimic or, Giborium at the bare minimum.
Right. I have another one, too, that I like. You don't have to be a rocket surgeon.
You don't have to be a rocket surgeon to know what. To know.
Fill in the blank.
Put your answer on the X. Okay.
X equals. You don't have to be a rocket surgeon.
There you go. So anyway, we will have some merch for you guys soon. But today we are talking about Nimrod, and I think that this is where we're going to wrap it up. We may break this particular one into
I don't know. I
two
think
topics. And of course you would freeze.
For us.
You what?
Ricky froze. I said I think Nimrod's going to be a reoccurring character in our talk.
Correct.
There's way more to unpack than you expect there to be.
It's like, how could there be so much in like 2 verses, 3 verses?
No kidding. Like
it's kind of
like,
crazy.
This much, but not in history. Not.
I feel like God was like
in lore.
I feel like God was like, okay, I guess I have to mention this guy, sort of, Like,
well, think about it. God was like, you know what? You may have been a fierce hunter in my face, because that's how the Bible
the preposition
says it
works. Yeah.
Like in your face, God. I'm a great fierce hunter, and God was like, oh yeah, let me tell you the blip you're gonna get, son. People are gonna use your name as a way to insult one another. Don't be a Nimrod.
Your name
fierce hunter
will be like toilet paper.
What must be what? What must be what?
It's supposed to say my butt's been wiped. It didn't say it all. Anyway, I don't know why it's not working. Anyway, we'll go with it.
Oh, no,
yes,
I heard it all.
He's a blip. Oh, did you? Oh, maybe it's just me.
Speaking of Nimrods.
Speaking of...
we won't tell you who that is if you can't figure it out on your own. Fine.
I mean,
you good.
We could go on a whole other podcast about, reptilians if you want to, but I think I'm good for now. Stick with Nimrod for now. The old school Nimrod.
So guys, what's going on in our world this past week? More weird alien stuff down in Peru.
Yes, some weird stuff in Peru. If you're not following us on Twitter, guys, we are trying to grow our following there. Please, we're, it's pretty easy. You can follow us at the CTDW. You can follow us anywhere on any of our social media. It's all at the CTDW. But we are in particularly trying to make more of a presence and actually give more feedback, have more back and forth. I think that's actually kind of always been our original
right. We
goal.
Want to have conversation, 100% do.
Yep.
Let's see, what else has happened? Hawaii burned.
That's a whole thing.
Weirdness, right?
Really, really, really weird. I don't know if you've seen the
Hunter
laser
Biden
coming out of the sky,
is
supposedly.
Ew, no, I didn't see a laser coming out of the sky. I missed that part.
Twitter was saying that so everyone has been saying that there's a laser that basically shot Maui.
And that's how that fire started.
That's what's being said, and then Twitter said that there's been some context around that, and that was actually a photo from like 2018 or 2017 or something like that. So I'm looking into it. I mean, you know how like if you get all your news from TikTok, you're probably not getting much news.
Right.
But I'm just hearing all sorts of stuff kind of floating around on all sorts of weird social media sites, and we're getting to the point now where, I guess we're kind of fully entrenched in the place where you can't trust the news at all. So,
at all.
Yeah, you were going to say, sorry.
Let's see. Oh, Hunter Biden was indicted.
And so was Trump for like the 80th
indicted.
What?
I don't even know. I'm like, what is some normal? Was there normal news? It's been hot. It's been hot. Has it been real hot for you? Like,
it's been... Oh my gosh, you can't imagine
here
how hot it's been here in Austin. It's ridiculous. Like we've been, my in-laws were just here. Sorry, by the way, guys, that's why we've been on a bit of a hiatus. If you hadn't seen our stuff as much, my in-laws were here visiting from Mexico City because COVID impeded them from getting here for like 5 years, which is awesome. It's great. But it's all good.
And before that, then I was out because of death in the family, and so
it's been a little.
It's been an interesting summer.
But God's good. God's good. He's doing all the stuff he's supposed to.
He absolutely is. Agreement.
And Yeah, it's been crazy, crazy hot, and you know who that makes me think of.
How dare you?
So, anyway. Sorry, I'm just doing all the buttons today.
He's pushing all of the buttons with all the fun sounds.
Am I pushing your buttons? So,
hey, we had like 2 days where it wasn't triple digits. I mean,
yeah.
it was like 98.
I know.
Barely counts,
I
but
know.
we were like, yes!
Here,
not triple digits.
it's humid on top of the intense over 100 digit, over triple digit heat. So, like, even breezes just feel like death breezes. It's so gross. It's super
awful.
gross. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, we've had enough rain to make our vehicles look really gross, and enough rain to make you go, eh. But we can get rain and have like 15% humidity in El Paso.
Oh, that's a big deal for you guys.
Yeah, we have special skills. Like when the humidity's above 50, like we're dying.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that we're in Houston now, guys.
Shell would never want to visit Austin. She's like, can I not ever go near there?
You know what's really weird? I've been to all of the big cities in Texas.
Yeah.
Except for Austin.
Well, what the heck are you doing? Like,
I know.
come visit
I'll
me.
come visit you. But I have not. San Antonio, man, dude, I love San Antonio. Houston,
It's interesting.
I could go without it.
I could definitely do without Houston.
Dallas's
Dallas is fun.
freeways are like,
yeah,
like,
Dallas traffic
the
sucks.
Six Flags there is good. The Six Flags in San Antonio is good. I mean, apparently the reason I go to the large cities in Texas that aren't El Paso is to go to amusement parks.
And we don't have any, so you're not coming here.
No, we know why.
Oh, jeez. So, I mean, all I can say is... Okay. I guess we're going to get to our jam
But anyway, yeah, that's what's going on this week. Hold on, one more thing before we really get into it, Rick.
Roll it out.
What books have you been reading this week?
Oh, good question. That's a good question.
We had started with that, and then we kind of forgot it. But I think it's fun to...
Yeah. You know what? I am reading like... good Lord. For this episode, I've been reading like a million different books. I am reading currently... Let's see here. What's this guy called? The Two Babylons of Papal Worship by Alexander Hislop.
Hislop, yeah.
That was from 1916, I think he released that. It's very
I read
interesting.
that. I
Did you really?
Somewhere I have that book.
It's a very dense book. It's very dense. I read some for this episode, a book called Final Apostasy, DNA Corruption Continued, by Linda L. Evans, who is apparently extremely studied. She's an extremely studied woman. I'm reading Forbidden Gates by Tom and Nita Horn.
Sorry, that is actually... that's right.
It's a good book. It's a really good book. I'm rereading it, and I'm like, oh, wow, I forgot about all this stuff. I need
to reread it.
Yeah. The Complete Apocrypha by multiple authors. And a book about Antarctica that I'm not going to reveal here because...
exciting.
And portions of Gilgamesh.
Are you reading part of the epic?
Just every once in a while, just like
epic
dots in here and there, just trying to fill in some gaps. I think that's mostly what I'm reading right now.
So, Derek Gilbert's book called something really interesting.
Not The Return of Saturn.
No, not The Return of Saturn, which is one I need
I want to read that.
It is, I think it's on my Kindle app. I'm reading the Genesis 6 conspiracy still because it is also quite dense. What's in Shelley's library? So The Great Inception is the Gilbert book.
Right. Right.
He does a good job of breaking down Sumerian lore.
Second Coming of Saturn, that's what I'm thinking of.
Right, I really want to read Second Coming of Saturn.
I do too.
I'm
cool.
doing the Genesis 6 conspiracy. I've been Jasher some, but
Yeah.
Jury's still out on that one. I'm not sure. I'm
Yeah.
a great fan. So in Audible, I'm still going through the Judgment of the Nephilim.
Haven't finished that
I
one.
also was listening to The Pilgrim's Regress by C.S. Lewis. And I decided I needed a break. Sometimes you just got to take a break, you know?
Yeah.
And so...
Not everything's aliens and demons all the time, guys.
I listened to A Ghostly Gift by Angie Fox, which, y'all, is a Southern mystery. This blonde Southern belle who happens to be haunted by I don't know, booze-running 1920s, I don't know, he's a ghost, but he speaks like he was in the mafia or something. And honestly, it is nothing but your relaxation. Like, not just thing at all. Listen to it.
That
and
old
I
chestnut.
put it on, and because I'm watching documentaries, I'm listening to podcasts and whatever. Like everything is at 1.5.
Yeah, I know you have to.
I listen to everything fast, including this book. I also listen to it at a higher speed.
It sucks going back to stuff. That's the only thing that sucks because you're like,
right, and it's real hard.
Yeah.
But I think that's the majority of
that's a lot.
What I have been reading,
scouring,
and listening to. Yeah, until I took that break.
Oh, I am also
read that dumb book, but gosh, it was good.
I'm obviously rereading the Bible, but I am rereading the Bible chronologically. So I have a chronological Bible that I'm reading through, and it has tons and tons and tons of historical commentary, which is really cool.
Ooh.
Really, really cool. Really worth doing. I really recommend it.
That sounds really good to do. I've thought about doing that, and then I'm like, oh man, I don't want to cross-reference. Really?
Well, it's good. It's good because it's just a good read through to get kind of like a feel for the direction the Bible goes, like actually went, that history actually went.
Right,
it's really, really helpful. It's really helpful.
No, and I could see it, and I've thought about doing it a few times, to be honest with you, simply because it does help put things
really into perspective
together. So, nope, totally get that.
Yeah.
Have you been playing the New York Times puzzles?
Heavens no. I stay as far away from newspapers as possible.
I normally do, but my kids and we all do this New York Times puzzle. We do it every day. It is
Sudoku.
No, it's called Connections. It's a beta, so I guess not everybody is doing it. And you have 16 words. Yesterday, it was 2-letter abbreviations. Is real hard. I felt like a dummy. I got it, but skin of my teeth, it was on my last chance. But I'm gonna have to send it to you. You'll enjoy it. It's real quick. You get one puzzle a day. We all do it, and then we screenshot the completion, because it doesn't show you the answers, but shows you the colors and how you did them.
Oh, that's cool.
So, I'll show you in our text. Oh, let me make it so that the camera gets it better. You can see like my one kid
weird
did it, and so this shows you like the top. You missed one, but then you got it in the next try, and then pull on the next one, and then they kept missing.
It just looks like
one
Tetris
in the yellow. I know it does, but it tells you that like cool. That pink. It's it's a wrong answer, finally all the right answers, all the right answers.
Oh, right on.
And it's cool to look at because you can see how each other got it. See,
Oh, wow.
they didn't complete it, so that's failed.
How
there.
weird.
Oh no, they did get it. They got the green and the yellow, no problem, and then that blue just threw them off until they finally got it. And so it's one of those things. It just like one of these things is not like the other.
It's a good way to connect.
And we all have fun, and then we screenshot it and send it to each other.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
that's the fun little game I play every day with my kids.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna try.
I mean, you can use social
play
media and technology to
It's
keep
true.
in touch.
Not everything has to be bad.
No, it's a tool.
Not everything is
It's a
doomsday.
tool.
Just 90%. I'm just kidding.
It only feels that way.
It only feels that way. I mean, I think it's a lot like Elijah and the servant, right? God help them see what I see.
Right.
That our armies are much more than theirs. And on that note.
Okay, now we can crack into it. Sorry, I just had to have some of the lipiness first.
Yeah. No, you're good, man. We haven't chatted in a while, and it's always good to keep you, the listener, informed. You guys you can skip all over all this if you don't want to hear us talk, But if you don't want to hear us talk, what are you doing? So today, or this evening, or what's left of today, we are talking about, did Nimrod become a Nephilim?
All right,
the Bible tells us,
in particular.
Correct. The Bible does tell us that he became a Gibborim, a Gibbor, right? A Gibbor. And if you remember from our last podcast, we are both fairly convinced that Nimrod did become a Nephilim, but I'm beginning to think it's more than just a Nephilim, and maybe that's why the Bible left it written the way it was. You'll also remember that we believe Cush to be Nimrod himself, which is kind of rocky water to stand in, honestly. But we're letting it play out. We're letting it play out and see kind of where the word takes us and what we kind of discover. This was an exceedingly difficult episode to do. I don't feel like it's very conclusive, but I think you guys will have a lot to work with. I know I did. I know I still have many questions and like a bajillion other avenues to explore. But I'm going to give you, Shelley and I are going to give you what we came to. So I guess the question here is, why should we believe that Cush, or Nimrod, however you want to name this person, was a Nephilim? Well, let's I guess we'll just start. I guess I could pull these up. Shel, would you mind doing that? Would you pull up the Septuagint of Genesis 10:8? If you can find an interlinear, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Doesn't have to be, but it'd just be nice to look at.
I prefer the interlinear, to be honest. I
don't read very much Greek, so there's that. I can actually use that phrase. Most people in Spanish, we say it's para mí está en chino, like it's in Chinese to me, but in English we say it's Greek. It's Greek to me. So that one actually applies for me. It is Greek to me. In Genesis 10 verse 8 is the verse where in Genesis 10, let me back up real quick. If you remember, is the what do they call it, of nations? I just left my mind. The table.
Oh man.
Table of Nations? No.
Table. It is the Table of Nations.
Okay. All right. I was not lost. So it's called the Table of Nations, which is basically after the flood, well, and before the flood, frankly, kind of how everything is drawn out with genealogies. Okay. And we stumble upon this seemingly really random verse, which is Genesis 10:8, which I'm sure if you've watched our previous episode, the previous two episodes, you will know very well that this verse is super significant. The Bible is not written in a random way. It's always written on purpose. God wrote the things the way he wanted them to be written.
Right.
Whether or not we were his his imagers to do so, it's written the way he wanted it. So, knowing that and having the word as our basis, it is very peculiar that all of a sudden it says Cush begot Nimrod, and as we discussed previously, right, Cush begot can also mean gave rise to, and Nimrod means rebellion. So Cush gave
Right.
rise to rebellion, and Cush became a mighty. How does he became? He began to become a gibor, or a mighty one, and he was a mighty one before the Lord, a gibor before the Lord.
And Cush begat Nimrod. He
There you go.
began to mighty one on the earth.
Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
Let me.
And while we're waiting for Shaul to pull that up, it basically is that this gibor is a bit of a conflated concept here. There we go. Now we got it. I'm gonna go full screen so I can see this better. There we go.
Yeah.
And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. Now, the interesting thing here is that a lot of people debate this from the Hebrew perspective, right? They'll look at the interlinear Hebrew directly and be like, "Well, no, it says," and this one's not Greek, but that's actually okay. It's
Did
probably
you
good
want Greek? I'm sorry.
If you
I
can
always
find
start. Let me see
That's
if
okay.
I can.
No, it's fine. It's
I
fine
always
because-
start in Hebrew because
no, that's totally fine. You
that
can,
was the
because if you look right there,
language.
you can see it says Gabor, where it says a mighty one. It says, and Cush begat Nimrod, he began to be a mighty one, Gabor. So he began to become a Gabor, which is a weird phrase in Hebrew. It's very open-ended. It is also used in concert with Nephilim, but it can also be used for one who is mighty, one who is powerful, one who is of great, prowess, stuff like that. It's a pretty open-ended term, noun, as it were. But when you look at the Septuagint writing of this, the Septuagint specifically makes reference saying that he is a gigantus, or a giant. That is the word that is used in the Septuagint. Now, before you get all like, well, yeah, but the Hebrew, this and that, sure, fair enough. Let's actually examine how the Septuagint came to be. I think I've talked about this in a previous episode, but it is absolutely fascinating to me. I was doing just a general history of the Bible. I have been for, I don't know, about 2 years now, just kind of going through it little by little, learning about early church fathers, stuff like that. One of the most fascinating things ever is the Septuagint. It was, I can't remember who did it, but it was someone hired 70 different, I want to say rabbis, to translate this into Greek, so that there would be there would be something available for the Old Testament to be read, right, in Greek, and have some context for it. The crazy thing about the writing of the Septuagint is that all 70 translators translated it like nearly identically, which is why it's called the Septuagint, which refers to the 70.
Okay, so here's.
Okay. It's super blurry for me, but I'll let you read it.
Yeah.
No, it's okay.
Let me go to the big screen so I can read it. Says, I'm going to go back to verse 6. And the sons of Ham, Hoshish and Mishrain, Hod and Hanan, and the sons of Cush, Saban, Eli,
She'll
and
uncover your mic.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sabatha and Ringam and, these names. Sabakatha, and the sons of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan, and he gave birth to Nimrod, which is Nimrod. This laborer is a giant on the earth.
Mm-hmm.
This was a giant hunter against the Lord of God.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, in the face of God.
Yeah.
For this reason, Nimrod is the giant hunter against the Lord.
In the beginning of his kingdom was Babylon and Uruk and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So the important thing there that I wanted to draw, and that's actually a really great translation, by the way. Thank you for finding that. Nimrod is clearly pointed out as being a giant. A giant. That is a very specific word. Now, so we have good reason to believe that he was a Nephilim for that reason, because it's the same concept, right? Like the Hellenistic Jews or the Jews of that time period in general had that same concept. They understood very well that it was the same theme. That's the word I'm looking for. So that's one reason to believe a good reason to believe that Nimrod was a Nephilim. Now, number two, why is another good reason? So, if you're able to, Shell, can you head over to Daniel 4? And it can just be like ESV. It doesn't even matter what it is.
He's like, something easier.
No, yeah, there's any one of them is fine. You can even do Amplified.
I love Amplified.
I do too, actually. So, in Daniel 4 verses, and I got this information, by the way. I won't, try and take credit for it. I got this information from Ryan Pitterman. Ryan Pitterman. Ooh, that's great. Check that out. Ooh wee. Go to verse 15 first, will you, Shell? He's the one that turned me on to this information, because I was looking desperately, trying to figure this. I mean, it is just an absolute enigma about how this happened. And I'm still left with a lot of questions, but I do feel like it's a little clearer now.
Became a Gibborm. Yeah, because it's weird. How did he become something that he wasn't? How did he go from being a human to something else? Yeah,
altogether, right? We understand the concept of being a Nephilim from birth, right? That's a very understandable occurrence or succession, right? But becoming one after you're born is weird. It's very weird.
Right.
So another reason Ryan Pitterman turned me on to this one here is this particular set of verses. Is that from the top, Shell?
Give me a second, because it's so strange. This is 4:15, right?
Yeah, 4:15.
Okay, I have, this is still sweet Septuagint. I'm going to, let me grab this and bring this over to that screen. Bear with me
you're good.
for a second, because there.
And
why does it keep giving us the Greek?
I know, it does that. Just click on ESV up in the upper left-hand corner. Just click on ESV, and it should give you just regular ESV. There we go.
Man, I have this really good one on one of my other search engines. It makes me sad that I couldn't just pull it over here.
Jeez. I mean, that's just,
Are you making such rude?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while, so no. Okay, so verse 15 says that. Geez, I can't read it. I don't know why I can.
Yeah, I don't know that I think.
I got it. Okay.
Totally the right one. It's.
So this is. What's that? What's that?
Talking, and so they were leaving one of them in the earth, as with the beasts of the earth and the grass of the cattle is distributed.
Yeah. So it's from. This is Nebuchadnezzar talking, and he's talking about the watchers. I guess we can read from 13. I saw in the visions of my head as I lay in bed, and behold, a watcher, a holy one, came down from heaven. He proclaimed aloud and said thus: chop down the tree and lop off its branches, strip off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Sorry, it's hard to read it. Let the beasts flee from under it and the birds from its branches, but leave the stump of its roots in the earth, bound with a band of iron and bronze, amid the tender grass of the field. Let him be wet with the dew of heaven. Let his portion be with the beasts in the grass of the earth. Let his mind be changed from a man's, and let a beast's mind be given to him. And let 7 periods of time pass over him. The sentence is by decree of the watchers, the decision by the word of the holy ones, to the end that the living may know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whom he will, and sets over it the lowest of men. This I dream King Nebuchadnezzar saw, and you, O Belteshazzar, tell me the interpretation, yada yada yada. If you hop forward to verse 32, Shell. Scroll
Dude, I
just
am
ahead.
reading this in the Septuagint. It's so
Is it crazy?
big time.
Oh, cool.
And
Stumbled onto a gold mine.
the
In real
verses
time, guys.
are slightly different, and so.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to...
32.
Yeah. And you shall be driven... 32 and 33, excuse me. Sorry about that noise, guys.
Okay.
And you shall be driven from among men, and your dwelling shall be with the beasts of the field. And you shall be made to eat grass like an ox, and like an ox. Notice that. It's not an ox, like an ox. And 7 periods of time shall pass over you, until you know that the Most High rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. Immediately the word was fulfilled against Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven from among men and ate grass like an ox, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven until his hair grew as long as an eagle's feathers, and his... I can't read it. It's blanking out on me.
Nails were like birds' claws.
And his nails were like birds' claws. So this dude turned into a... I don't know. It sounds to me like he transmogrified into a werewolf, is what it sounds like to me. Loosely speaking. Did you want to tell me something from the Septuagint?
I don't know. Let me finish reading it.
Okay. I'll just continue for the meantime. So, the point I'm going at here is we should give pause here. And mad props to Ryan Peterson for making this connection. We see that the righteous watchers enact the complete transmogrification of a human king who grows hair and claws like a beast of the field. He becomes what could be described as a hybrid. Notice my language. He could be described as a hybrid. Whether he was transformed into a hybrid is quite important. Why is that important? Well, this is my 2 cents. This is my take on this. Why I think this is important. The act of, or the, yeah, sure, we'll call it the act. The act of volition comes into play here, in my mind. Why do I say that? Well, because I believe that volition is the key to hybridization. I think that just like in Genesis 6, when the sons of God came to take wives whom they chose, well, you can't just come down and just take wives. It doesn't work like that. There has to be some sort of exchange, right? Like, this is our realm. God gave it to us. It can't just be taken from us. We have to give up ground, territory, or something, right, in exchange for the things that we want. Well, in this case, we exchanged our women, right, our daughters, the daughters of men, the daughters of Adam, in exchange for technology, understanding, all sorts of power, things like that. So that was a volitional exchange. And before, I get ladies jumping down my throat like, wow, the men made the decisions. Fair enough. But if you saw a glorious, beautiful, immaculate God with flowing hair glowing everywhere right in front of you saying, hey, you want to be my wife and you could give birth to my glorious children, I hate to say it, but compared to a dude like myself, though handsome and ruddy I am, don't think that the chick would go with me. She would obviously take the God, right? She would absolutely take the God. I mean, it's in all the movies. We already watched the movies, right? So there was a volitional aspect there for hybridization to occur appropriately. Now, also, I think it's important to notice, and I'll let you, if you want to tell me here in a second, you can just interrupt me, Michelle, that's fine. That why is it? I might get further down on the road on this one, but what other reason, if you remember from our previous episode as well, what other reason would people have to base entire religious and frankly political systems on a few random people unless they made some sort of highly supernatural transaction of some sort. Nimrod wouldn't have any one. He wouldn't even be mentioned in the Bible in the first place. But he was the first emperor, which actually, as an argument against what I'm saying, that seems like more than enough reason to call him a Gibberim, right? I mean, that's, you're the emperor
Mighty
of,
man.
yeah, I mean, it's a manly man. But I would say that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to base an entire first empire, religious empire, highly syncretic, religious pagan empire, be the template for the rest of the world unless you did something pretty drastic. There had to be something really drastic, and that's part of the argument, not the only one. But so that's where I'm coming at it from. Why I believe, kind of giving footing to the reasons that Shell and I have come to really warm up to the idea that this dude was indeed a Nephilim. Now, here in a second, I'm going to kind of give some information about why maybe he was more than a Nephilim. Because here's the deal, right? When I read Gibberim, or Gibbor, right, I think automatically, I mean, he was just a strong dude. So, like, why is that such a big deal, right? I mean, which seems like a fair assessment. Like, why even mention if he's just a strong dude? Well, and forgive me, but I'm trying hard to come out of my Western mind frame of the Bible, and so I'm trying to lend a little bit more spiritual possibility to this idea.
Well,
That's where I'm at.
If he was just a strong dude, I mean, that's Samson. Samson did not begin to become
right
a Gabor.
The language, right?
He was a man. He was endowed with his strength.
Mm-hmm.
Because God gave it to him,
Correct.
The angel of the Lord appeared to his parents and said, "Your son's going to be a strong man. Don't ever take a razor to his body. He can't eat any fruit of the vine, like not even raisins." There were stipulations because God cut a covenant with this man, but he was a deeply flawed human being, but nowhere in the Bible does it say he was anything other than a human ever.
Correct. Right, and there's no language around began to become, excuse me. That I think that to me was like the tipping point. I was just like, that's just too weird of a phrase to be in anywhere. Like, you don't just begin to become a thing, right? That's a process. Like, and that by definition, right? It defines to us that there was a process that happened. It was not like a one and done. He drank the elixir and now he's the Gibor. Like it. He began to become. I am the elixir. So. Now we come to the real question.
But you know what? The whole thing, and why this is even of any kind of interest, is that we see this similar story played out again and again and again and again.
Thank you for mentioning that.
You know what? When you said he drank. If he drank the elixir, he began to become, and you think of things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or a were animal, a werewolf, a were ox, a were whatever. Which, by the way, is an old German term.
What is?
Were, when you say like werewolf.
It's because you're scared and you don't know where the wolf is.
No, it's not that kind of where at all.
Where's the wolf? Ah, the wolf.
So dumb.
I can't find him. Okay, go ahead.
You're so awful. Basically it means an animal or a human that changes into an animal. I'll have to find it real quick.
So it
I
literally is
wanted-
transmogrification. Like, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, like really.
If you are walking by and I transmogrify, be prepared to run or die. If you guys don't know, you should really look up Blaster the Rocket Man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Weird good stuff. That's what I grew up on. That kind of stuff. You make an important point. I'll let you look up the werewolf, but you make a really important point, because the more I kept digging for this answer, the more elusive it seemed to become. Now, I will say I did find a lot of connections that make a lot of sense, but I still feel like it's not a clear path necessarily. And that actually is an important point to what we're talking about. You guys will forgive me. There was a lot of data for this one, and so I am trying my best to keep my thoughts in order, but I cannot guarantee that that is 100% possible. I would like to draw you guys' attention to a verse in, and I might just put this one in here. Okay. It's a short one, so, bear with me. It's Revelation 17:5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. That's it. It's a short one. And I really want to stop right where it says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery. Right there. That's, we can make a hard stop right there. We talked about in the last episode that all of the pagan religions of the world really draw on this kind of weird interaction between Nimrod, Semiramis, and, supposedly Gilgamesh / Nimrod and his wife. And, the birth of a child who supposedly, when Semiramis killed, according to lore, right, killed Nimrod or Gilgamesh, then she ends up marrying. It's a very weird story. Ends up marrying the son. But within all of that, there is the prophecy, right? We already knew about the proto-evangelion, which is that the Savior, Jesus Christ, would crush the head of the serpent, excuse me. And we see that with the religious workings, I guess we'll call it, with the pagan workings that were going on in Babylon, that prophecy was trying to be counterfeited and usurped and preempted before any kind of actual connection could be made, so that they could claim, here's the Savior, this is the Savior, this is truly the Savior. And that was actually, there's lots of things that you can tie in there. In my opinion, I think that has a lot to do with being able to help unite an empire that you're working to construct, right? But based on that whole idea of mystery, it's no accident that it's hard to find this information, because all of these things are occultic, and occult things, by definition, are hidden. They're mysterious. They're behind walls. They're behind curtains, smoke and mirrors, and all sorts of stuff like that, right? Like that is the point. And so it's not any surprise that it's hard to kind of get to the bottom of what went on here. But I will say that going off of this, there was a lot of different rabbit holes I was following. So one of these is the letter X. Let's go to that. Let's go right there. The letter X is very, very interesting. And believe it or not, I was getting to like my wit's end on like, where in the world do I search for data on this weird guy? Like, what the heck do I do to find out if he became a Nephilim, or if Gabor means something else, or what do I do? I woke up one morning and probably prompted by the Holy Spirit, I was like, I'm going to ask Twitter. And so I did. And I typed in Nimrod witchcraft, and all sorts of interesting stuff started to come up. And I started to see in my feed a bunch of people were writing that I don't remember the quote, but one of the portions of this tweet that everyone kept like retweeting said X is associated with the original Antichrist, or the original transgressor, what we'll call him, right? Nimrod, the first true transgressor and the first socialist. No, the first emperor, right? Tyrannical emperor.
The opposite, by the way, of socialist. At least in theory.
Right. Well, you got to keep everybody happy to keep them working. So, anyway, having said that, and I lost my train of thought. Where I was going? X, right.
Heck.
So I ran onto this, and I was like, well, that's weird. Okay, well, let's follow this rabbit hole where I can find it. So I found a source, and it had interesting information about the... And now I'm not going to have access to it right now because I'm going to forget where it's at. But it was essentially about... Let me see if I can find it. The Masons.
The legendary symbol for Nimrod is X.
There it is. You just found it for me, see? Let's see. Let me look it up like that real quick. The legendary. Because I think that's exactly from the book that I was reading. That's how I ran onto this. Legendary.
See, you know what? The Genesis 6 conspiracy, like that's really the premise.
The X thing?
The author know that the secret societies are using all this weird information in the symbolism in witchcraft, and Nimrod was the true beginner of what's that called? The big one, Freemasons.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about the Freemasons, Shell, is that what I was reading is that they in particular actually don't believe that Nimrod became anything else other than a man, which is particularly interesting. The Freemasons are a weird group too, though, so I mean there's that. But what was interesting to me is that X... coming back to my thoughts, right? I found a reputable source, and I found this book by Linda,
Evans.
what's her name? What's that?
Evans.
Linda Evans, thank you. You got it. Linda L. Evans, I think it is.
Yeah.
She, I'm on full screen. Let's go off of full screen so I can see what I'm doing. I couldn't read what we were doing. That's why I had it on full screen. She makes mention of this whole... She was my source for this idea of X, right? And drawing it back to the Freemasons using that symbol as well. Well, the reason that X is so important to them... Sorry that I'm dawdling, but X is so important because it means change. It implies change. And that's when it kind of clicked in my head. I went, oh, Nimrod changed. I get it. Get it. Which is why we very likely have expressions in English like X marks the spot, right? Or the pot of treasure is always found on the X. Now, that's one rabbit hole. Let's go to another rabbit hole. Are you ready to follow me down this path?
There are a gazillion.
There really are a million. I just picked a few, and they all sort of kind of start to line up in different ways. Again, Shel, please feel free to interrupt me anywhere you'd like to. So I started looking up alchemy because I was curious about it. Alchemy is by definition, very mystical, right? And I stumbled onto I guess we'll call it a talk that was somewhere from I believe from the 50s, and very, very interesting, as a matter of fact. It was just kind of like a lecture. Excuse me, that's the word. It was a lecture about all this. Oh, here it is. I just found it. Let me just find the name so that I can give it to you guys, and I'll have it in the references as well. But it was from the Esoteric Alchemy, the Transmutation of Attitudes, a lecture by Manly Palmer Hall. And I don't know when it was from, but it's from, I don't know, when he lived. He died in 1990. But in this lecture, he makes a really interesting statement that an alchemist, all the alchemists that we're studying, because that's where chemistry came out of, was from alchemy. But alchemy itself was interesting because it, in theory, has its origins from Egypt. It began in Hellenistic Egypt, but they say if you go even farther back, and if you look at the Arabic, al, which means the in Arabic, and then kimika, which is, I believe was changed. I have to look up the definition again. You can look at that if you want to. It's not super, super important. But if you go farther back than that, al is actually El. And we all probably know El is a very, 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 very old word for God. So we're kind of chasing down the trail a little bit. So we come forward,
Well,
fast forward a little bit. And go ahead, Shel. Go ahead.
and El has a double meaning. El, it does mean God.
King as well, right?
Well, for in Sumerian, El is a particular god.
Right.
He is the son of the creator god.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to say I had a professor of foundational studies. So basically, we read things like the Epic of Gilgamesh and excerpts from the Bible and Asclepian and oh good gosh, so many of the foundation works of Western philosophy, basically. And sorry guys, I meant to silence my phone, and I apparently just turned my Bluetooth on. I hit the wrong button. Anyhow, he tried saying that Yahweh is the creator God. Agreement. And I'm assuming that he's going to go with Inanna is the goddess that is the mother.
Mm-hmm.
So actually it'd be Enki. That'd be Enki, Inanna, and El is their son. I'd have to look. I'm not really well versed in Sumerian lore. I'm becoming more so simply because there's a lot of information that shows us a lot of why we think what we think. We don't realize how much we are influenced by Sumerian lore. Like Christians don't. Christians have no idea. Maybe a lot of Jews don't either. And then you get the people who know just enough to be dangerous, and they'll be like, oh, the Bible stole everything from the Sumerian lore of the Epic of Gilgamesh. And I'm like, or they lived at the same time and more than one writer wrote about the same event. I mean, if you look at what CNN says versus what Fox says on something, that should be a good comparison for you.
Well, it comes back to values, right? Like what you think is important is what you're going to stress.
Right.
And to be fair, I wouldn't toss the baby out with the bathwater. I'm sure that I'm actually pretty convinced that the Epic of Gilgamesh probably has some important information that helps us to understand a lot of what we're dealing with. Frankly,
oh yeah, I agree with you, which is why I've been learning more about Sumerian lore. Again, a book that helps tremendously with that is Derek Gilbert's.
Gonna have to read it myself, man.
Oh, the one I said. Incursion. Inception. Inception.
Yeah. Inception.
He helps break it down. It's very scholarly. That's the word I need to use for it.
Which is good.
Derek Gilbert is absolutely a follower of Jesus, and he is a good theologian. But that particular book, he is not coming at the subjects from a biblical viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
He has taken a lot of anthropologists and archaeologists research and just parsed it down,
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Try to make sense of it.
dense. It's dense. You are reading a lot of scholarly writing, and you can tell
Yeah.
it feels very much like the type of reading I would do for research for papers.
Sure.
But it's still good, and it's a lot of information compact into one book. So it has a ton of merit. I definitely recommend it. Just warn people you need a knife and a fork.
No milk to be had here. I lost it. Oh, there we go.
It's a heavy meal. I know. I'm back.
And you're back.
Okay, go on. You were at L. Sorry.
Yeah, no. That's fine. And actually, I'm glad you mentioned. God, thank God you step in here and there, because I'm like, oh, right. That. Alchemy, just like X, and before I step straight into alchemy, let me do X real quick before I forget this.
I'm never saying Xmas again.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah.
Well, because I had been told,
Do it.
oh,
Go.
X, it
Go with it.
symbolizes Christ, and so even if you're writing out Xmas, it's still Christmas.
I'm so glad you reminded me of something.
But according to
Go with it. Go.
the view of the X, like saying Xmas means the celebration of Nimrod, who they try to say was born on December 25th. Jesus was not born on September 25th. He was born, December 25th. He was born in mid-September. I think close to the third week in September. But he was not born on December 25th. I don't know why anybody even thinks that anybody tries to say that. The Christ Mass is the Catholic Church did put it at December 25th because they were trying to
ameliorate a situation. Yeah.
To take a pagan holiday and make it holy.
Right.
And they did not succeed. And it comes out in the washing. Everybody's saying Jesus was born on December 25th, so their gods were blah, 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 blah. True. Jesus wasn't born on December 25th. I didn't celebrate him and God's giving nature by giving my family gifts on December 25th. I don't have a problem with it. There are so many things that we try to take shortcuts. Which is what this episode's really all about.
Yeah,
we try to take shortcuts, and it comes back to really bite us in the bum later on.
Wasn't this like our first or second episode? Second episode, I think it was, where we were talking about slowing down.
Right.
And when we don't slow down, that's what gets us into so much trouble. It's coming full circle.
Yeah, we do lots of full circles.
Oh,
but that whole X thing, I'll never again.
Yeah, I'm about to break that down too.
Be lazy like that. Oh, good, because
I was about to jump into
the Feast of Nimrod. That kills me.
Yeah. Help me here if I miss anything, but I was about to step into alchemy, but alchemy is going to play right into X, and the reason it's so important. So, one of the things that's very important that Nimrod practiced and was practiced in Babylon was, you may have guessed, astrology, and frankly astronomy, which probably weren't very much different for them in their times. But we know and I'm not going to look it up. You can go look at it yourself. If you look in Enoch 7, chapter 7, in those few 7, I think it's 7 and 8, you can see all the sorts of just things that were taught to mankind. And in particular, I thought it was interesting that women were taught how to use charms, enchantments, root cutting, and acquaintedness with plants. I thought that was very, very fascinating, which is very likely where we get our lore for witches and cauldrons and all that good jazz. Because the Watchers taught their wives, they taught the women that they came for, which is very, very crazy.
Right.
Well,
now, technology for what they wanted.
Sure. And I mean, that wasn't the only thing they taught him, but it's interesting to me that Enoch, in conjunction with talking about the Watchers coming for these women, makes a very specific point to say, hey, these women were taught these things. And I was like, well, yeah, that lines up pretty good with what we know in was happening in Babylon thereafter, right? And frankly, this is an aside, but I didn't tell Shell this, but this is something I was kind of thinking about, is that it's interesting to see that Semiramis was really taking charge in the religious direction of Babylon, right? And I am not going to get too muddied in the waters, but I will say, in my opinion, I think that she felt spited. She felt a lot of spite towards men for having given the Watchers women, right? Even though the women may have gone volitionally, I still think that she felt undercut. I do.
I don't know how much of the females' volition was in that, but their head, the father or brother, or uncle, whatever, whoever their patriarch was, did. I mean, women were chattel back then, and Semiramis is an interesting historical figure, because they definitely believe she was a real woman, and that she did indeed hold rule over Babylon after her husband, the emperor, had died. She maintained power.
Yep. And I think a lot of the way that she managed it, understandably so, if your sex was being, denigrated and treated worthless or given no say in the matter, right? I mean, what's your automatic inclination? Is to jab right back, She's going to do one of two
things: feminine wiles, or she's going to murk the
or a
source of her
both.
ire.
Right. So that's just an aside, but I think it does play into what we're talking about, because going back to the X, I'm going to do my best not to mess this up, but X was also associated in the ancient world with the sun and with Osiris, and also with the phoenix, the rebirthing. Okay. Now, I think I might just read this straight, just so I make sure that I don't mess it up. Oh, you got all that good stuff right there. Okay. And I'm just going to read from here. I think this is probably the most useful. It's talking about ancient belief about the phoenix bird, where it came from. Actually, maybe I should mention that. The idea of the phoenix, according to the ancients, came from pelicans. What would happen is that they would... Are you still with me, Shell? Or are you frozen? I think you're frozen.
We're back.
There you go. Pelicans would intentionally wound them, according to ancients, the females would wound themselves and bleed on their young after they had been killed by their father. And that, in theory, would revive them, would bring them back to life in the ancient mindset. Okay?
That's the whole... Man, I was going to say Osiris, Horus, Isis thing, but that's just the Egyptian version of it.
Sure, exactly. And that's actually why the Masons I think that they use some sort of canister, like a specifically like pelican-shaped canister for part of their rituals. I don't remember the exact explanation around it, but I know that that's a big part of it, and that plays right back into the lore of, everything that was going on in Babylon. Everything,
right.
So I'll just read this straight for you guys. All symbols have their origin in something tangible, And the phoenix is one of the secret orders of the ancient world, and the initiate of those orders, for it was common to refer to one who had been accepted into the temples as a man twice born or reborn. Wisdom confers a new life. There you go. And those who become wise are born again. Now, this is something that I wanted to mention to you guys. This. I know. It's getting heavy. It's getting weird.
Man.
When I read this, I like jumped off the page myself. All of you guys that, well, I'll just read it. When George Bush Sr. was asked by Barbara Walters on a TV interview during the 1988 presidential election if he was a Christian, George stumbled, paused, and then said, "If by being a Christian you mean born again, then yes, I am a Christian." So, we begin to see the counterfeit symbolism all over the place, all over the place, and that's why the Babylon paganism is such an archetype for all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Now that we're kind of structuring this, the reason I'm going about it this way, I want you guys to have in the back of your mind that Nimrod clearly did something. You don't get this level of symbolism and archetypal religious pagan practices for no reason. Like, there has to be a solid footing for it. And I think that just calling him a strong man kind of does not strong man your argument. Coming back to X. X was represented as the sun, also if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong if you know, but a representation for the phoenix as well as the rebirth. Okay? So, because it's a rebirth, it's also a change, which is all part of this X factor, all this stuff playing in. And another reason, going back to when I was talking about astrology and astronomy, the reason that Nimrod practiced this is because of the concept that the ancients had of the stars. They were gods. This was the place where the gods inhabited. This is where they moved. This is where they lived.
And the heavens, right?
Correct. An unreachable space. Sorry, that was not an intentional pun there, but it happened. And I think just as an aside, I think we do ourselves a disservice by thinking that the heavens and the stars don't have any kind of spiritual implications for our lives. And I don't mean read the stars and see what your horoscope is. That's not what I mean. I mean, God put the things in the place that he wanted for a very, very specific reason.
However, Nimrod is credited with instituting astrology.
Mm-hmm.
Just put that there.
He is indeed. And what better to make an X than using the equinox, sorry, had to do that. The idea was, and now we're going to be able to bleed over into alchemy, and you're going to start to see how probably a lot of these disciplines all share these weird ideas. The X in astrology was used for when the equinoxes would line up with the path of the sun. But how did they make this alignment? Well, they had to take the equator of the Earth and line it up. If they were to shoot the equator out towards the cosmos, it would eventually intersect with wherever the sun was going to meet, which for them meant a time of change, but also
Rebirth.
Correct, rebirth, but also a state of evenness, of equality. And this is going to start making you think of a bajillion other religions and philosophies and stuff like that. Because equinox means equal nights.
Right.
Right? So that means that the reason that they were waiting for the equinox was for everything to be stable. And things could only be stabilized when they came into a moment where they could be crossed and changed. If you want to say transmogrified, you can. It's a goofy word, but you get where I'm going with this. Alchemy is the same concept. Same concept. Here we go. Now I'm going to try and break into alchemy. I appreciate you guys being patient. I got a million thoughts in my head. But alchemy is the same concept. You are vying for equality. You're vying for peace in your life, to find equilibrium is the best way to say that. And the very well-known feminine and masculine, light and darkness, right, are supposed to meet. And while I was watching, going back to this YouTube that I was listening to, it was, like I said, it was a lecture by this gentleman. He made a really interesting statement about an alchemist that was working, getting close to. We all know that alchemists, what was their desire? The elixir of life, and they were trying to transmute gold. They were trying to make gold
Lead
out of
into gold.
anything. Yeah, lead certainly, but any metal, bam, let's change it. In fact, apparently one alchemist was trying to fund the Crusades by being able to transmute gold and be able to fund it that way. That's a crazy idea, but sorry, total rabbit trail. But what he mentions is that one of these alchemists is doing all the right things, right? He's working with all the right chemicals, doing all the right things, and all the adequate equations. Everything's working like it should be. And he says, but what the alchemist failed to realize is that he also needs to be changing. And I went, whoa, that's weird. Now, he goes on to specify that this is about regulating your attitudes, regulating your negative thoughts and stuff like that, that's all part of this process, right? That's all part of it. But to me, it really seems to line up in my mind, maybe it's just me, you don't have to take my word for it, but in my mind, this really starts to line up with all sorts of perfecting and finding the balance for change. And how many religions do you not know of that everything that you do is essentially to transmute your own self to a higher plane, to a more peaceful existence, right, to a better understanding? And you made a good point, Shell. I'll let you elaborate if you want to. But you talked about elevate yourself to where?
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Where? The whole thing of yoga and aligning your chakras, or meditating to transcend. You're trying to transcend to something else, something not human.
Right.
That's what every occult practice that I can think of, every pagan practice, that's what they're always about. They're always about elevating yourself, transcending to something else.
Well, the Masons themselves, right? It's all levels. Everything is levels, right, with the Freemasons. One other thing that was really interesting to me in early Babylon, when Semiramis was instigating or controlling, or whatever you want to call it, she was essentially coming to a point where she was cutting off access to any information unless you submitted to become part of this religious system. And only priests and priests alone had access to special information. And I'm not taking a jab at anyone. I'm just telling you information I read from this book that seemed very relevant and important to me. But this author compared it to the Catholic priests when they would have confessions, right? They would have confessionals. And people would go make their confessions, but the priest would never confess to anyone else. And that's not biblical. Everyone is supposed to confess their sins, right? Like for healing. Like that's what the word says. And so she created this kind of inescapable society where if you wanted access to information, good, bad, or otherwise, you had to play the game, right? There wasn't any other way to get information. And so information, religious or political or any kind of other access to any information, was mitigated and filtered through this priest. And you would go and confess to this priest, and this priest would know all of your dark secrets, and you would have none
power.
of theirs. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Guess coming back to how I think this happened, I personally really do think that there was probably a plethora of things that were going on. I think all of it was probably going on. There was probably elixirs of life. There was probably, Nephilim sex magic going on or something similar to it. Like, I think all of these things were happening. I'm not telling you, I'm not going to give you an answer, and, that I'm not going to dig anymore. I'm just telling you, it seems like it's very, very shrouded on purpose, like highly, highly shrouded. We'll keep digging, believe me, you. But what I am believing right now is the following. This makes a lot of sense, and Shell and I were literally just talking about this right before we jumped on. These are my final thoughts, and Shell, you can take it anything else you'd like to from here. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, who in theory is supposed to be represented as Nimrod, right, is said to be 2/3 God and 1/3 man. And I think that that's a fascinating analogy. I was actually reading a scholarly paper about it, and the guy was like, I mean, we don't really ever hear that kind of language. Like, it's either like half man, half God.
Right.
Half whatever, right? So what does that mean? And so he was breaking it down, and he said, well, most ancients, actually probably most people nowadays believe in 3 parts of the body, which is the body itself, the physical body, the spiritual body, and the soul, right?
Soul or mind, right?
Yeah, correct. And so we were chatting, and I said, well, there is a theory, and this is also from Linda's book, there is a theory that she says that a lot of people posit, I'm not going to tell you who those people are, I'm just telling you straight from the book so you can go look it up for yourself. I will do the same. That say that Satan, and I'm going to be very specific, Hallel, right? Hallel ben
Shahar.
How is it? Shahar?
Shahar.
Shahar. Hallel ben Shahar, or Satan, the Satan. I'm referring to Satan himself, the particular
devil.
enemy, the devil.
The one we call Lucifer.
Yeah. The one we call
The
Lucifer.
son of the morning.
Good call. Again, no pun intended. So, I think that she doesn't see that she believes this, but the more I started talking to Shell about it, and the more I started thinking about it, I went, oh, that makes a lot of sense. What if Gilgamesh, or Nimrod, was 2/3 God because he was possessed by the devil himself?
Angels don't normally possess humans. Demons
and we'll be
do.
specific. Sons of God, right? Sons of God.
Right.
To be very specific.
Right. Those whose initial estate is as a spirit being, they have a body that they access and use when they want to, need to, whatever. They don't need to have a human host, whereas demons do. Demons are the disembodied spirits of dead Nephilim.
Right.
And they had a body, but their body is now dust, and they want to be in a nice, warm, moist body again, and so they inhabit humans. But angels normally don't, because they can just bring up their own body. And we know that in those bodies, they're corporeal. They could eat and drink. There's instances of it in the Old Testament, quite a few.
Yeah.
So for Satan or Hallel to inhabit a body, a human body, that's super, super uncommon, but not completely unheard of.
Right.
Instance with with Nimrod, that's what he's referred to as the first AC, the first Antichrist. The Bible tells us that in the New Testament that Judas, when he was thinking of backing out on betraying Jesus, that the devil possessed him, inhabited him to make him do it. The same thing, and he is referred to as the son of perdition, which is not something that is not a term that's bandied about in the Bible. A son of perdition every time is an antichrist. It is somebody who is different from, this is going to sound so weird to say, but a normal possessed person. Like, just in my brain, as I thought it, my brain was like, how can we say that, Shell? But
over here we have the normal model, over here we have the Antichrist model.
The normally possessed human, and here's the devil-possessed human. Slightly different.
You better believe I'm going to turn this into a clip.
You're a jerk. I bet you are. Oh, people are going to give me so much grief on Facebook.
Well,
whatever.
As long as they come
roll
watch the
trolls,
podcast.
Roll them.
Think about what the word is telling us, man.
But so again, first time there is that type of instance where an angelic being possesses the body of a human, and goes back to your volition statement. He had to have wanted it. I'm sure he thought there was going to be some great benefit, and if he was willing to be called rebellion, one would assume that, like, he was rebellious
at a
very cellular level.
Yeah, man. And the crazy part about this is that the theory, I didn't even finish the theory, but the theory is that the final Antichrist will repossess his bones and
Nimrod's
take hold of it.
bones?
Yeah.
Ew, that's crazy, because they it was in 2014 that they found what they really believe is the carcass.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures. Have you seen pictures?
I have. I mean, he's like in gold wrappings and stuff.
Remarkably well preserved. They say either Nimrod or Gilgamesh was found in Iraq.
I think it was in Iraq,
in the 2014. As a matter of fact, there are people that posit the belief that that's the only reason we went to war in Iraq was to go in and pillage
and
the
given
temples of Babylon, which, of course, again, this is where the occult began.
And given the statement that George Bush says that in the sense that he was born again, then he's a Christian.
Yeah, that's so gross. That's maybe gnarly, man.
Maybe that's why he left, because he did find the weapons of mass destruction for humanity.
Oh my God.
Well, you know,
horrid.
We know that God wipes them all clean when all's said and done. Man, that's crazy, right? So my thoughts on this was to kind of wrap this thought up. I think that the Bible is trying to hint at us. Maybe my conclusion is wrong, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not like, it's not a hill I'm going to die on. In fact, the fact that we do this podcast usually means it's most of the stuff I'm talking about is not hills that I'm willing to die on, unless it's, you know, the clear-cut, explained Word of God. Then I'm like, well, we're not going to compromise on that. But we can talk about it, but we're not going to compromise on it. But if I'm wrong, that's okay. But it would make a lot of sense that the Bible would refer to him as a Gibor and not as a Nephilim, because he would not have been a Nephilim, right? I mean, we obviously, I don't think there's any doubt that something supernatural was happening to this dude, because he began to become a great one, right? Whatever that means. But I think that it would make a lot more sense that he volitionally gave his body over more and more until he was no longer more than an avatar for, maybe his soul, he decided to do away with his soul in lieu of giving the Hallel
Ultimate
his
power.
body. Yeah. Or maybe he was likely he was promised that power, and right, when willing to give up just enough, because that's what that means. He began to slowly waste away. He began to slowly lose his humanity and no longer become a human, because Gabor doesn't necessarily mean a strong human. It just means a powerful or strong one. So take it for what it is, man.
It's interesting, though, how it was also darn it.
Doggone it.
I totally lost my train of thought. I saw the tomb of Nephilim giant Gilgamesh found, and
Old Gilly.
it totally wiped everything else out of my head.
Well, it's a creepy image. Dang. Yeah, man. Those are my thoughts on this stuff, guys. There's probably a lot more stuff lurking in my head somewhere, but I think that's the gist of it.
It's interesting because there's this really unholy Trinity that involves Nimrod, and you touched on that a little bit.
Correct.
But it's Nimrod and Semiramis, and then the
offspring thereof.
Their offspring Tammuz.
Which you had talked about potentially.
Baal and Tammuz and Ashtaroth, so it's Baal and Ashtaroth and Tammuz.
Right.
Or El and Astarte and Bacchus is their offspring, and in Babylon it's Belus and Ishtar and Tammuz. The thing is, Ashtaroth, Astarte, Ishtar, Inanna, that's all the same goddess that Semiramis is. And the lore that the husband dies and the goddess gives birth to him reborn, it's so common. And the first of that I ever knew was Isis, Osiris, and Horus. And Isis is, go figure, Inanna, Ashtaroth, Ishtar, Astarte, it's all the same deity, and it's over and over again. It's even in Indian lore. It's Vishnu, Krishna, Isis, and then there's Devaki. There's even China. China has Panku Yi Hingo Ma Stupo.
I would want to see the characters.
I know. I can give you if you look in our chat, you'll see their names towards the bottom.
Oh, Panko Hungo. Is it Matsopo? Is that also one?
That'll be the third, because they're the male god, the female god, and himself reincarnated. She rebirths him, and look at the Mexican one.
Oh yeah, well, this is interesting too, right? Because we were just talking right before this, and this is just an aside, guys. In fact, I think we're gonna call this one a wrap, and if you want to watch the rest, you can watch behind the paywall, because this is all just for fun. Guys, we love you. We bless you. Shelley, you want to give the blessing, and we'll call it a wrap.
The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his countenance towards you and give you peace.
Almost got it.
Amen.
Numbers 6, 24 through 26. God bless. Shalom.
I'm like, yeah, shalom for sure, guys. Shalom, shalom. Until we meet again. Be
If
blessed.
not, Maranatha on the other side, guys.
Maranatha. Oof. Can't wait for him to come back.
He's a coming, man. Later, guys. Thank you for watching this episode of the Christian Theological Dark Web. For questions or comments, please email us at thechristiantheologicaldarkweb@gmail.com. If you'd like to support us, please look for the Patreon link in the description. This has been another production of CTDW Studios. Thank you, and God bless.